Peace and blessing, family. This is Sekou Kelleh. I'm very happy to be here on gotkushTV. Thank you for having me on here again today to do what we call the Afrocentric analysis, giving you the news within the news. And I'm very happy to be here. My brother Shakara always invite me on this platform. I'm very grateful to all the team of gotkushTV that have always come together to make this happen. So today we have an interesting topic to discuss. Is the news that's making headline, the Senegal elections. So I will start with the first slide here so we see what is going on. I want it on the screen. Okay. So great lessons from Senegal presidential elections. As you might have heard, ladies and gentlemen, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, 44-year-old young African Senegalese, has been elected as the 5th president of Senegal. And there's a lot there. He was elected on a platform of PASTEF, a Pan-African Party, and the youth who have been agitating for a very long time for a change in the country. So they ended up electing Bassirou Diomaye Faye, a 44-year-old. What are the lessons? As Pan-Afrikanists around the world, we have analyzed the elections. We have looked at the struggle that the PASTEF went through to arrive at this point. We have done a lot of analysis, look at historical analysis as well, and how we arrived here. And there are a few lessons that we've decided to bring forward to you. And these lessons are very important for us to analyze to be able to see how we can judge the leadership of our young brother. The first lessons that we're going to learn is, number one, the African youth demand real change and sovereignty all over the continent, all over the world. African youth are demanding change and sovereignty. Why is this important? Well, if you know, we've gone through the independence period of the founding fathers of Africa, from first of all, 19th century coming down when Marcus Garvey and the Pan-African movement to free Africa. The ideology went down and then inspired so many great others like Kwame Nkrumah. And in the late 1950s, we see Ghana coming into independence. And the other independence struggle spread across the continent. And the continent got free. But the enemy did not go away. They started a new tactics to control the continent. It's called neocolonialism. And now the movement on the continent and around the world, in the Pan-African world, is to free Africa and all Pan-African countries around the world from what we call neocolonialism. And this movement is what we call sovereignty, change, military sovereignty, economic sovereignty, cultural sovereignty, so that we, the people, can have what we call self-determination. We can make decisions for ourselves. We can determine what happened. We can be the masters of our own destiny, not some hidden hands behind the curtain controlling our leader, imposing leaders upon us, and deciding our destiny for us. So this movement has started, and it appears that Senegal has decided to lead the way for this movement, and we are about to witness history. So the young people around the continent are demanding for change and sovereignty. That's a great lesson that Senegal elections have taught us. Second lesson is that Pan-Afrikanism remained the ideological Bible of African revolution until today. Now, for those who are out there who say Pan-Afrikanism is over, it's old, it's been outdated, well, it's a Marcus Garvey thing, it's done. Well, we have news for you. Pan-Afrikanism remains the ideological Bible of African revolution. What do I mean? Pan-Afrikanism remained the platform, the ideological platform on which every African who seeks freedom, who seeks nationalism, who seeks dignity will always find something in that ideology to build upon. Any African nation, any Black country around the world that desire change, that desire to evolve, that desire sovereignty, that desire development, you will always find a lot of information in the Pan-African ideological movement that will be able to help you to arrive at that destination. So Pan-Afrikanism is not old. In fact, it remains the most viable ideological movement in the African world until this day. So for those who still doubt, this is the answer for you, that definitely we must hold Pan-Afrikanism dearly because it has all the ingredients to be able to lead to our liberation and our freedom. And the young people of Senegal saw that. So they used that opportunity to rally the young people and say, this is Pan-Afrikanism. For us to get our sovereignty, to unite our people, to integrate, to be able to have good relationship, economic relationship with our neighbors, a relationship that is not determined by outside power, that is not determined by globalists, but determined by the African sovereignty, determined by the Africans' solidarity, determined by our history and common culture. That is how we are going to build ourselves and be strong and solid as a formidable force in the world on the global stage. So if you come with that ideology, you are definitely going to have young people rally around you. You are definitely going to have young Africans coming around, because anyone who desires dignity and love sovereignty, you will definitely love Pan-Afrikanism, because that's all it speaks to. It is not an ideology that seeks to oppress a people. No, it is not an ideology that seeks to impose tyrants. No, it is not an ideology that wants to dominate other people. No, it is an ideology for change, an ideology that speaks to sovereignty, that speaks to the respect and dignity of people, that speaks to economic sovereignty of a people. So that's what Pan-Afrikanism stands for. And these young men have utilized it, and they have definitely taught us a great lesson in Senegal that we must all learn. There's another lesson that this election have taught us, is that there is no force, democratic revolution and direct action are equally viable. What do I mean? The lesson here is that to change a system of government in Africa, we can also use the democratic means and rally the people. We don't always have to kill the presidents that it happened in the 80s, or Samuel Kanyondo, or what happened in Congo. We don't always have to assassinate leaders we don't love. We can rally the people and convince them of our program and our ideas, and those people can rally around and force the system out. This is what the Senegalese have taught us. Now, that does not mean I'm saying that you cannot use direct action. Direct action, like what has happened in Burkina Faso and other places, sometimes direct action is required. So never remove direct action from the Pan-African psyche to make us this type of non-violent kind of people who are pacifists. No, it's not just that. We can have direct action, and we can also have a democratic movement to change the system. So these two can go together. We don't have to choose one or the other. So there are situations where Africans must use by any means necessary to get their freedom. There are other instances where we can rally the people and use a non-violent means to remove the people. It depends on the circumstances. In this case, in Senegal, the people won, and they used the democratic movement to be able to remove government. So these are all tools before us that we can all experiment in our various African countries. We don't like the system. We don't like the leader. You try the Senegal method. If it doesn't work, you try the direct action. These are all tools available to us. Another lesson that we've learned from Senegal is that there is no force greater than the people. So let us awaken the people. Now, for those of you brothers out there, like on gotkushTV or Pan-African movement in the UK, in USA, and all around the world, and you say, if you've been asking yourself, I've been teaching all this while on social media about Pan-Afrikanism, about Marcus Garvey, but nothing has changed. It seems that we are putting water on a rock. Well, you are awakening the people. And there is no force greater than the people. The information you are sending out there, the writings that you are doing out there, these platforms that you Pan-African groups are running, you are educating the masses, millions and thousands around the continent. And guess what? When it comes, when the revolution is set, you'll be surprised how many millions of young people you will have on the street. That's the fruit of your work. It's not just Diomaye Faye who woke up one morning and convinced the Senegalese youth and say Pan-Afrikanism and they join him. No, there were a lot of grassroots. This is a result of the grassroots movement that have been going on for decades. This is the work of Kemi Seba. This is the work of Natalie Yam. This is the work of most of you brothers, the Gaviites, all around that have been sending lessons out. The education that you've been pouring out has produced a fruit and has produced a result. So the lesson here is to continue. Do not give up. Let the naysayers continue to say, it will never happen. Oh, you will never achieve this Pan-Afrikanism. Well, let's educate the people. Once we have a good number of Africans who are conscious and are able to articulate Pan-Afrikanism and live it and believe it, the revolution is almost close and it will not be televised. Another lesson here, the final lesson here is that the Pan-African forces must come together. Now, this is, it's not very clear. Let me see if I don't know. Yeah, the Pan-African forces must come together and be visible again because the second revolution has begun. Now, Pan-African forces must begin to come together. We must be visible on the continent and in the Caribbean and other places. We should no longer sit on the sideline and watch the political forces and actors continue to take action, because there are different forces that are trying to shape our destiny. There is the what I call the Negropean forces, the Islamic forces, the Christian forces, the neoliberal forces. There are different forces on the continent, and these forces are trying to take control of our political system. They are trying to take control of the economic system. The Pan-African force should no longer sit on the sideline. We are not in minority. The idea that we are in minority and therefore we can no longer make an impact, not on the continent, not in the Caribbean, not in the diaspora. No, it's not true. We can make a difference. We do have the number. And we must continue because we have entered the second phase of our revolution, which is the neocolonialism. It must die. The neocolonialism must die. Once it's died, it doesn't mean all our problems are over, but it means that we have entered another age of our revolution. Because it's a continual fight. It's a continual fight until it's Uhuru. So we must not be stand aloof to watch the forces that are trying to control our destiny on the continent. We must be partakers. We must be people who will be partaking in the revolution, and I'm going to explain how. Now, to discuss Senegal's election, how did we arrive at this place, and on what platform was Diomaye Faye elected? It's good to just give you a background. On the top there, you see the French word la rupture, which means in English, the breakup. This is the party's ideology. The party is called PASTEF. In French, the meaning of is an acronym for Patriote Africain du Sénégal pour le travail éthique et fraternité. In English, the African Patriot of Senegal for work, ethics, and fraternity. The party was founded in 2014 by the brother in the black African clothes here called Ousmane Sonko. Ousmane Sonko was a civil servant. He has worked in the tax system in Senegal, how they generate revenue. So they call it tax inspector or whatever. It's how the Senegalese government generate revenue from different tax system. So he worked in that domain and he became a whistleblower. He saw the corruption, the unpatriotic deals that were set up by previous government. That France have a lot of stake in their national economy. That France is the last and the final deal breaker in their economy. And not just France, there are other actors and forces that have come, and Senegal was engaged in a lot of dubious concession agreement. And these concession agreement, in the next 100 or 200 years, their country will never move forward. It would just be one step forward, 3 steps backward, because few people were benefiting at the detriment of the entire population and the generation yet unborn. And he decided to blow the whistle to the Senegalese people. He wrote an entire book detailing his findings, telling the Senegalese people that we are being ruled or controlled by very unpatriotic people. And these unpatriotic forces that found their way into power are collaborating with external forces to steal our national wealth. They are signing agreements that will make our country to never industrialized. They are making movements that will destroy our culture, our history, and our values. So we must rise up now. This, he decided to form the political party called PASTEF, the Patriotes africains du Sénégal pour la fraternité éthique et pour la éthique et fraternité. So this patriots movement began to bring people together. And they have one mission and one mission only. They call it la rupture, the breakup. La rupture, the breakup. What are they breaking up? They are breaking away from a system. And that system we will discuss. So Bassirou Diomaye Faye became a member of this party called PASTEF. And they all joined together. They went for the first election. I think it was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken the date. Don't count me on that. They went over the first election and they lost. They came third place. So they decided to go back. They didn't just give up after the election. This is another great lesson. When PASTEF lost the election, when Ousmane Sonko was the flag bearer and they lost the election, they came third. Guess what they did? They went in the rural area. They went into the interior. They began agricultural projects. They began a lot of sensitization. They were making direct impact on the life of the people. And the people said, this is our chance. These are people of our own age, born in the 80s. And they understand what is going on. And we've seen the revolutionary movement around the world is always led by young people. And these are people in their age. They are looking for nothing else but dignity for their people. They are looking for nothing else but glory for their nation and their future. Because they will live to see this future. If they make it good or bad, they will definitely live to see it. So they have good intention. This is how the people rallied around them. The president of Senegal started making dangerous moves. He started accusing Ousmane Sonko, the leader of this party, began to accuse him of various crimes. One of the crimes they accused him of is that he was corrupting the youth. They accused him of rape, no evidence. And all those attempts were to bar him from running from office. And they succeeded in doing that. And once they succeeded, Ousmane Sonko made a very historic decision. He said, this movement, we are not looking for hero and we are not looking for Messiah. Ni Messi and ni hero. We are not looking for hero or Messiah, but we are looking for patriot who will produce a conscious masses that will take their own destiny in their own hand. So for that reason, I'm nominating my Secretary General, the Secretary General to PASTEF, which is Bassirou Diomaye Faye, to be the running mate, saying the court has barred him from running. And that decision led to this victory. So it's important for you to know on the party, and you can see this party, the color they choose, the green, they choose the red. You can see the Pan-African in the black in there. And they always put their logo within the African flag. These were Pan-African patriots, and they did not hide it. They did not hide it. In fact, Ousmane Sonko had always, you will see him with a book, Cheikh Anta Diop books. He always talk about him. They always talk on Nkrumah. They always talk of all these great Pan-Africanists. So these are people of our generation who have decided to take the bull by the horn. Now, when we talk about the rupture or the breakup or the la rupture, which is the party ideology, you are asking yourself, what are they breaking away from? Well, the elephant in the room is called France Afrique. And France-Afrique is a geopolitical system created in the 1960s by the French. After they failed to control these African states and the independence was inevitable, they saw the African states, the English-speaking state were moving towards independence, and the other French territories will eventually seek for independence. So they decided to give this country independence. But then there was a caveat. They said, to give you independence, we need to sign some agreements. And this agreement is a pact. And that pact is called France-Afrique. This France-Afrique is that you will continue to maintain French culture. We will be able to have a say in your economy. We will be the first partner of choice. Whatever you produce in your country, France will be the #1 partner who will choose everything they're going to buy. Then the remnant of those things you can give to other partners. 2, the currency that you will use in your country, that currency will be produced, controlled by France. And France will continue to have a say in your educational system. These agreements were signed, and many people think it's just a myth, but this is real. And this France-Afrique became a tool that was used to control all French-speaking West African states and Central African states. The first president of Senegal, Léopold Sédar Senghor, made Senegal to be the intellectual center of France-Afrique, because Senegal, to its credit, have produced some of the greatest intellectuals in West Africa and in the French War. So they decided to make Senegal to be the intellectual center of France-Afrique, Côte d'Ivoire to be the economic center of France-Afrique, and Chad and other places to be the military center of France-Afrique. So France-Afrique was well structured. So these young people are saying the France-Afrique is a parasitic geopolitical system, which a little France continue to eat within huge, monstrous Africa. Humongous, not monstrous. This huge African elephant lying down is being eaten by a little cock in the image of France. And this cock benefits. His entire life is about Africa, but it pretends as if it's the one taking care of Africa. But his entire food, his livelihood, and everything depends on the African continent. Africa literally became a pound of flesh and meat for this France-Afrique movement. And leaders who were incompetent were maintaining power. So these young people are saying, we want to break away from this system. But to break away, there are 3 decisions they must make. And that's what everybody is watching. The first decision is, what will they do with the currency? The franc CFA money that was created by France, controlled by France. What they will do to break away from that currency and create a Pan-African unique currency for West Africa called ECO, or they create a currency unique for Senegal. But they don't have a choice. This breakaway must signify that they must leave the CFA. 2, they must choose between ECOWAS and IAS. IAS is the Sahel nation. These 3 nations, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. We discussed them here before in one of my videos. They call the Alliance of the Sahel. In French, the acronym is IAS. So AES. So the AES nation have broken away from ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, which is an organization created in 1970 to create economic connections and political connections between Africans in West Africa. But this institution has been hijacked by France. So these African countries that have done coup d'etat, the 3 of them have decided to form a new organization called AES to break away from ECOWAS. Now Senegal have a choice to go back to ECOWAS of France, or join the AES, or try to merge the 2 together and create something new entirely. We are watching. But this is what is facing the new government. When you say break away, these are the strongholds that you must touch. The second one is a systemic reform or compromise. The system in place, which has to do with the education, the economic system. Are you going to continue the dangerous, nasty capitalism that continue to eat and destroy the country? Or you are going to nationalize some important aspect of the economy for the benefit of the people? We are going to watch. These are the things that they must break away from. The multinational corporations and companies that continue to eat up Senegal, because Senegal now is about to be an oil and gas producing country. And all these huge companies are already on the ground. They want to take everything and just give Senegal little percent. We're going to see whether you are going to create a national oil and gas company for the country that is going to control the petroleum resources and that is continue to enrich the people and subsidize important area for the people, housing, health, education. Whether you are going to subsidize those things so that Senegalese have the best of life, or you are going to continue the capitalist system where these people will continue to suffer. This is the breakaway that we are all waiting for them to break away and see how it's going to work out. Now, we know the enemies are out there for them to make them to fail, or even if they decide to break up, to make it miserable for them. But how they're going to navigate this, we are watching the brilliance of these young brothers. But there is the Mandela Paradox in this whole thing. And the person who brought out the Mandela Paradox is our great sister, Natalie Yamb. Natalie Yamb, if you know her, she is a Pan-African activist, well known on the social media, who continue to break down and make a lot of analysis for African youth about the geopolitical system of France-Afrique and how it's affecting all of these countries. And not just France-Afrique, even the globalist system in the English-speaking world that continue to dominate the World Bank, the IMF, how these institutions are machines of the Western power that continue to destroy the economy. So she asked few questions. She said, we must be careful not to celebrate early because there seems to be the Mandela Paradox in this whole situation. What is the Mandela Paradox? That a hero who fought for his country eventually goes to prison, and on the eve of his freedom, and he decided to compromise some key aspect of his own revolution just for him to get out and be president. And that compromise began to undermine the very struggle for which the person fought for. Natalie Yam said the first question we must ask, why was Bassirou Diomaye Faye released from prison 10 days before elections? There are rumors that some type of negotiation took place. So if those negotiations took place, what were those negotiations? What were the terms? Why was Ousmane Sonko, the main architect, was never allowed to run? Despite the president had the power, he freed them, he had the power, he could have pardoned Ousmane Sonko to be able to run. He refused to do it. But they allowed Diomaye Faye to run to be president. Who are the interest groups that want to negotiate with these Pan-African patriots? We heard that the US government was at the forefront of this negotiation. It's rumor. We heard that top French diplomat and ECOWAS were involved in this negotiation, because the Mandela Paradox, we've seen it, is that they try first of all to silence the hero, like they did with Ousmane Sonko. If they cannot silence the hero, they frighten you first. If they frighten you and you are fearless, they try to assassinate you. If they cannot, then they put you in prison and they negotiate with you. So what has happened? That these brothers were free 10 days before election. And the main architect of this struggle was not allowed to run. But a man who was not known at all was allowed to run, and he won the presidency. And the day he won the presidency, the speech that he gave, he said he want the Sahel nation to return back into ECOWAS, and ECOWAS that will be reformed. That was not the original speech of Ousmane Sonko. We have to take note. Even the day yesterday when Diomaye Faye was inaugurated, in a speech, he was speaking like a pacifist. We want everybody together. He was reassuring the partners. Few words about ECOWAS. Few words about these places. But some people will say, no, these brothers are being clever. There is a difference between conquering power and exercising power. When they were trying to conquer power, they have to be as militant as possible. But now they are within the corridor of power, they have to speak diplomatically, because every word they speak can have consequence on the economy almost immediately, because the way the capitalist system is arranged, the bad guys are willing to tear down your economy every second. You are not really in charge. They did it to Russia, but Russia prepared ahead of time. That's why they maintain their economy. So if you are not prepared ahead of time and you make some careless speech, the next day you will hear that the inflation has gone to this percent. You will hear that your economy is going down the drain. Because why? Because the capitalist system was designed that way, that these few 2% people can decide to tear down your economy anytime. They call it the market forces. No, it is the market forces. Who are the market forces? Who owns these market forces? So what we are seeing here is that we are afraid of the Mandela Paradox. Now, we hope, because there is no evidence to these things, okay? There is no evidence. I have to repeat it. There is no evidence to these things. These are just analysis we are making, because as Pan-African, we've been around too long to be fooled. We've been around too long to follow emotions. We've been around too long to be carried away by emotions and ecstasy. We have to analyze things very thoroughly. If you say you are with us, we have to see the actions. We don't want beautiful speeches. We want beautiful actions. So Natalie Yam is saying, we got to judge these brothers by what they are going to do, because they're 10 days before release, which is miraculous to everybody. History repeats itself. We know what happened with Mandela. And Bassirou Faye, since his release and his election and the day of his inauguration, his speech has changed. He has started to speak like the former presidents. Nicely. Only yesterday, when he nominated Ousmane Sonko to be the Prime Minister of Senegal, Ousmane Sonko repeated his speech that he gave from the beginning of his party. He said, la rupture. President Faye did not use that word. But Ousmane Sonko, yesterday, when he was nominated Prime Minister, he said, we were elected for one purpose and one purpose only, la rupture, the breakup, and systemic reform. And that we must do to the letter. We were elected for la patrie, for the pit, for our fatherland, what we would call the motherland. So there is some nuances, but we are watching. But the only thing we are watching is to say, you promise a rupture, you promise a Pan-African revolution, see to it. It's not always easy to do a rupture like that, we understand. It's better to go and study the system and know from where you're going to attack it. But what is important is that you do not compromise. Whether you do it midnight, you do it in the morning, or you are going to do it mid-afternoon, it does not matter. What is important is that the intention, the will, and the politics is there, and the intelligence is there to do it. That's all that concerns we, the revolutionary that are watching. Now, despite those caveat that with those things that we just talked about, how we need to, the cautionary views that have been given by our analysts, we have to look at the election of these two people. It's a great opportunity. A great opportunity if these two Pan-Africans succeed. If successful, they could inspire and demystify governance and inspire a generation. An opportunity to break away from the cabal. This is an opportunity to break away from sentiments and be voting people based on character and competence. If they succeed, they could set Senegal on a path to irreversible progress and make genuine reforms and industrialize the economy. If they succeed, they will deal with corruption, bring efficiency in the civil service, strengthening in the institution, and invest in health and in education. If they succeed, they will lead to a great change in West Africa and the entire African continent. The old system will find it very difficult to convince the young people. Now, what you are watching all of this as a Pan-Africanist in the Caribbean, in Africa, in the diaspora, and you say, well, what is in this for me? What can I do? You know, we're just going to watch and see. No. What Pan-Africans can do as individual or organization to help the new government of Dakar is what I'm about to tell you. What you can do as an individual, you're not Pan-African, what you can do to help. As organization Pan-African around in the world, we've had people who are Pan-African leaning, they have been elected. What do? One, educate yourself about the government, its policies, and follow everything they do. Educate yourself about the history of Senegal, from the days of Sékou Senghor to Abdou Diouf, to Abdoulaye Wade, to Macky Sall, and now to Bassirou Diomaye Faye. Educate yourself about the revolutionary Cheikh Anta Diop and another Diop who was one of the revolutionary too in Senegal, the young Diop. Educate yourself about the current party, PASTEF. Educate yourself about the geopolitics of France-Afrique. Educate yourself about what is unfolding in the country and the government that is in place, their policies, because they have an entire book where they have highlighted all their policies. Acquaint yourself with this information. That's your first step as a Pan-African organization. Know this, grab all this information in your hand. Then two, what you have to do, participate in helping the government by making Senegal a tourist destination. If you are Pan-Africanist and you are thinking, where will I spend my next holiday? I would say go to Senegal. Pay a visit to Senegal. Visit the museums of African civilization. Visit the African Renaissance Monument. Let us troop into the country. By that, we're showing our solidarity to that government, and we are pouring our 1 cent, our $1 in the Pan-African economy. Let us visit Senegal. Let it be the next destination of Pan-African meetings, Pan-African conferences. Let's all head to Dakar. That's one way we are helping this Pan-African government. The third way is to petition the government to implement the Pan-African policies and program which it promised. This petitioning, we must not sit down and watch, because this is what you need to know. When the government comes into power, all the forces, the negative forces and the positive forces, they began to lobby and negotiate with this government. But oftentimes what we do, the masses, we fight to elect a people, then we sit down and watch them and say, let's see what they will do. No, we have to knock on their door and say, sir, you said this, we have not seen it yet. You said this, we have not seen it yet. And we also want this. We are proposing this. We are proposing that. We, as a Pan-African movement around the world organization, you have the embassy of Senegal, you have the presidency of Senegal, you can find addresses, right? Doesn't matter if they reply you or not, but let this history, let it be on record that we send in letters, we send in petitions, and we have petitioned the Pan-African government to do this, to do that. We've held meetings in Dakar. This is what we must do now. This is our government until they prove contrary, until they decide to go contrary. But they stood on the Pan-African sentiment to win. So it's our government. So we must not sit down and watch. Are you an NGO, a Pan-African NGO? Start thinking what you can petition the government of Senegal to do. It is within your right. Write them in the name of Pan-African fathers or mothers. I'm asking this. This is what we must do. And we must rally around and give them all the support that they need. This is my own petition, which I'm calling gotkushTV. I'm calling on all other Pan-African movement to be able to analyze this petition that I have, that we can look at it in the next 1 year, improve it, critique it, put it together, and march to Dakar. One, this government must pass a sanctuary bill for Pan-African activists so that Dakar will be a center where a like Okemi Seba will not be arrested because of his Pan-African view. Because we cannot be running to the diaspora when the Pan-African is wanted. Where is the sanctuary? Where does he go and be protected? Let Senegal stand now and say, because you express a Pan-African opinion, if you run to Dakar, you will be protected. Let Pan-African activists around the world who are running, finding place to hide, like Nathalie Yam, she French revoked her document. Recently, the citizenship of our brother Kevin Seba, he was born in France. They attacked him on his citizenship. He has to burn their document and give it up. Let Senegal be a center of sanctuary for Pan-African activists around the world, that we can run there and be protected. Two, this government must build a Pan-African Center for Research and Renaissance. We must now have a center where Pan-African information, ideas, research can, a center that all this information will be vegetating. It's not just be scattering around. We need a Pan-African Center for Research and Renaissance. Like you have things like TED Talk, where people go there, they share their ideas to the world. They gave great speeches about their new inventions, about the new revolution that's coming, about social critique, cultural critique, about technology and science. We must have a Pan-African Research Center where young Africans around the world can come and speak to the Pan-African vision, and speak to their innovation, and speak to the idea that we aspire, or things that we aspire to become, where they can go and debate, where a platform where they will be given to speak to the African vision on science, on technology, on culture, on governance, on politics. Well, a young man from Jamaica, from Belize, from Trinidad Tobago, from Nigeria, and everything can apply there, and he will be given a platform to speak his idea to the African world. This Pan-African Center for Research and Renaissance, they have to build it for us. Two, the Pan-African Education Trust. We know that all of these things demand financing, and who is going to finance it, but they are the government. They can set it up and begin to rally around for funding from Pan-African world, and people will chip in their $1. The Pan-African Education Trust. We need a center that will be responsible for the books we read in the Pan-African world. The decolonization of the education cannot happen through a colonial institution. We need an institution that is the watch eye of African literature, what books are spread to the African world. Who is creating our school curriculum? Who is going to put STEM in all our universities to have science, mathematics, and all this modern scientific invention that is coming up? How our curriculum, I heard somebody told me the last time that they went and studied, I don't know, computer computer science in Nigeria, and the curriculum the person was using, it speaks to computers that were in the 90s. In the 90s. The computer communication they had in the 90s, that's what they have in the curriculum in that Nigerian university. Because our leaders don't care. They don't even check what is there. So we need a Pan-African Education Trust that will control the books we read, that will be able to promote curriculum that are African-centered, that will be able to promote African authors and writers, promote African culture and vision of the world. That's the only way we can decolonize the education, because by the time we have partnership, that education trust have partnership with all these universities and educational institutions around the continent and begin to infuse books to those institutions, begin to raise funds for this institution, then now we begin to tell them what type of books will be added to their curriculum. We begin to do away with the French colonial books. We begin to do away with the Anglo-Saxon colonial books. We begin to bring in our own books. This is what we need to do. This is an opportunity, because when you say systemic change, a system is not built, it's not an event. It is multiple layers and factors that lead to a system. There is a cultural aspect of it. When you listen to Abdou Diouf, one of the presidents of Senegal, second president of Senegal, the man is completely French. In fact, after he left power, he became the leader of the Francophone. He called himself that his political philosophy is Francophonie, that he's proud to be the Francophonie of West Africa. These are people who saw themselves as French and not as African. So when the institution that produced those elites, if you think you can do a systemic change without first repairing the institution that will produce the next elite, then you are making a mistake. So these universities and colleges and schools, they are the one that will produce the next people that will be inaugurated as president after you leave. What education will those people receive? Why will those people define Pan-Afrikanism? What will be their understanding of global economy and African sovereignty? What will be their understanding? Because as you are in power, your replacement is being prepared. So institutional reform will demand then we have institutions in place that will see to it those reform go on even when we are not there. The Pan-African Center, the Pan-African Education Trust, the Pan-African Center for Research and Renaissance, and the Sanctuary Bureau for Pan-African Activism. These are my proposals. They can be critiqued, they can be improved, they can be added upon, but I'm looking for 5 Pan-African organizations that will join me and good writers better than me to improve this idea. We put it into document and seek audience with Dakar and be able to go there and submit this document. Then we leave it to them to call us back to see how this thing will be implemented. Pan-African, they were elected on the sentiment and the idea of Pan-Afrikanism, so we cannot sit and watch them. We have to participate. So this is the end of my podcast, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope we've given you some background understanding of what had happened in the Senegal, and we all should come together, like I said, and support this brother. Be on social media, it will be personally physically going there to visit, at least one visit to Senegal as a Pan-Africanist. It will also help for us to be able to provide our own solidarity to this leadership. But we are not doing blind followership, and we are not hero worshippers. We are going to watch every action and every speech they make to see if they betray the movement or they are standing with the movement. With that, I say thank you very much, and may the ancestor bless the gotkushTV.